Well, welcome to the Haven Community Conversations, where we talk about life, faith, and everything in between. And today I have the honor to talk to you.
Awesome.
Right? You've
Yeah.
been doing it for all of us, so I thought it would be kind of cool to sit down and talk to you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. If you had to preach a sermon using only movie quotes, which movie would you choose?
Oh my goodness. If I had to preach a sermon using only movie quotes. Wow. Yeah, I'm not I honestly I'm horrible at movie quotes. I only know the biggest the biggest lines or whatever. Courtney, my wife, is very good. She remembers all of that. So I'm just gonna say either Dumb and Dumber or Napoleon Dynamite.
Why Dumb and Dumber?
You want to hear the most slowest sound in the world?
Because they get people's attention, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You asked. Sorry.
All right. Well, if you were stuck in any...
You wanted something like real deep and everything. I told you Dumb and Dumber. I'm sorry.
No, I wanted, whatever you would think, but I don't know what I thought would
Yeah, you
would
just
come
weren't
out.
expecting that.
Yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that one. Okay, so next question. If you were stuck in any situation, what situation would you not want to be stuck in?
If I was stuck in any situation, what situation would I not want to be stuck in? Wow. I would not. Back in 2007, I was preaching a message, and I had I blanked out, and when I tried to regather myself, it was just up here was just all clouds. So at that point, it might have been, looking back, it might have been an anxiety attack, after I blinked out. And yeah, I don't ever want to be in that position again.
That's every speaker's nightmare.
Yeah, and I've learned tools to deal with it since then, but I don't ever want to be in that position again the way
Yeah.
I felt. Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
felt loss of control. For me, that I've had that situation happen, and that's what I felt like. I felt
Yeah.
like I'm not in control. I can't remember anything. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So
And when that stuff, it's, that kind of stuff happens. And like I said, I know the tools and I'm able to regather myself and move on. But that time, nothing ever came back in. So I had to tell everybody. I was forced to tell everybody. Were you there?
I was there.
You remember that?
That one moment of genuineness or authenticity that you gave everybody,
Yeah.
I think spoke far more than any recovery you could have.
Okay, so Bree, yeah, so I remember it turned into, and we didn't really do that in that church. It was a small church. But it turned into the interactive thing, how we do sometimes here. And, there was a lot of tears shed and people opening up about stuff. So, yeah, it turned into something great, but I still went home and wanted to crawl in a fetal position and suck my thumb. Yeah, so, yeah. God used it, but I was definitely, not that I was prideful, but I was just humbled. Like, it was just a hard experience to go through.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I can relate.
But thank you for that, Sean.
Okay, so what's your favorite color and why?
Red, because I've always said it.
You've always said red?
Well,
Like you like red?
yeah. I remember when I was little, I remember one time brown, one time purple, and then sometime in childhood, I went to red. And occasionally, I'll stop and think, is red really my favorite color? Okay, I'll stick with that.
Red's actually my favorite color too.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love red, but
I do too.
there's a, primary red, or is there, different shades of red?
I mean, there is different shades of red, but I like red.
Yeah.
Red.
I think I like dark red.
Yeah, that's me too.
Yeah.
But I was like you too, where I liked different colors. As a child, it was green and purple together. And then it went from that to burnt orange. And then from that, pink, and then now red. And it's been red for a long
I have
time.
no idea why brown or purple was ever my favorite color. I went to SFA and we're purple Axum Jacks, but like I could care less about purple. It's probably one of my least favorite colors now.
Yeah,
I mean, not, yeah.
yeah. And now, Eddie is a Cowboys fan, so it's blue. And now we're having a boy soon, grandson, so it's going to be blue. So
Oh, so your color changes, huh?
I guess. And then now the company I work for is blue. So I guess blue is, there's something about
You don't
blue.
have to adopt, the world around you. You can have your own.
That is
your own
true.
color.
That is true. But then the
That's
Haven
why
colors are blue.
I've stuck with red all these years.
I'll stick with red too. I'm not changing.
Okay.
Okay. Last fun question. What is the one song when you hear it, you sing at the top of your lungs?
Probably a Weezer song.
Come on.
Yeah, give us a little taste of it.
Oh my goodness, I don't know. I mean, it's not one particular song, but the whole Blue album is a sing-along song that like, yeah, they're just a sing-along band, and so they're probably. I mean, I've got a ton of songs that when I'm alone, you roll up the windows and sing to the top of your lungs, but yeah, they're very much a sing-along band. Remember the Buddy Holly song? I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember all that stuff. Yeah, probably
I don't know the words to it,
probably
but
any of those songs.
yeah.
What's with these homies dissing my girl? Why do they got a front? What did we ever do to these guys that made them so violent? All right, that's enough. I don't want to punish
hilarious.
everybody.
That's
They won't
hilarious.
get very far in the.
I thought about this question because the other day I traveled up to see my mom and dad, and I don't even know the title of the song because it just left my mind. But shout to the heart, and you're to
Yeah,
blame,
Bon
darling.
Jovi.
You give love. Yeah, and it was one of those songs I turned it up. Oh, the windows had to go down. So I thought, I wonder what song Scott would.
My windows go up.
Well,
I'm already a lip syncer at church.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, when you're driving to the country, I mean, there's nobody side. I'm going
True.
85.
Yeah.
Wind's blowing, hair's all like this. I'm not sure how I see, but yeah.
I remember moments when I was dating Courtney and driving back home. I was like, especially like when we actually started dating. I was on cloud nine, and there was times I would turn up the radio and roll down the windows on my way home and probably singing to the top of my lungs.
Yeah. Well, that's me every day. I give a full concert every day. So you ever, want to check that out? Just
Yeah, you don't want to hear my
jump-
concert. Well, you got a taste of it.
All right. Well, let's get started. It's time to pray. Let's pray.
Okay.
Father God, thank you for your constant love and presence in our lives. And I'm just so grateful to be able to sit here with Scott today and just pick his brain and allow everybody to get to know him. And I'm grateful that you extend your grace to us and that it carries us through each day. We just pray that you continue to guide us and align our hearts with your will and give us the wisdom that we need and to make every decision aligned to it. And Lord, we just ask that you be with us here and give us peace and just lead this conversation. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to do so. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So, The questions may or may not get harder. I don't know.
All right.
We'll see what
Let's
you
see
think.
what you got. Throw them at me.
So let's get to know a little bit personally about you. And so, where did you grow up?
I grew up in in North Houston and Aldine in Gatewood. It was neighborhood. It was the oldest neighborhood in Aldine. I always call it the My Name is Earl neighborhood. If you've ever seen that show.
No.
Oh, you've never seen that? Well, if you've ever seen My Name is Earl, that was my neighborhood. But those of us who grew up in Gatewood, we laugh at Gatewood, we make fun of Gatewood, but we love Gatewood, and we have a lot of Gatewood pride. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know where that neighborhood is. I had a lot of
It was
friends.
a poor neighborhood, but
Yeah.
it was a fun
Fun neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in Aldine too, so I remember that neighborhood, and I remember over there off of Hardy, it always flooding. And did it ever flood in your neighborhood?
Oh, that's what changed Gatewood. 2001. Allison, the tropical storm
Oh, yeah.
Allison. Yeah, it flooded about waist deep,
Okay,
and
yeah.
that's how my parents eventually. I think FEMA bought them out. They did fix up the house. They helped them fix up the house, but then it was a while later, I think. No, maybe they sold their house. I don't know, but a lot of houses got torn down during that time, so it changed Gatewood forever.
Yeah.
After Allison, yeah, so yeah, it flooded a lot.
Yeah. That's the one storm that I remember. I mean, obviously, I know there's been other hurricanes and storms and stuff like that since then, and some of them, pretty bad. But I always remember that one because I lost all my cabbage patches. Yeah, I had a little like playhouse in the backyard, and I had all my cabbage patches out there, and
Yeah.
lost every one of them.
Man.
Yeah. So, who is the biggest influence on your faith growing up?
Mom,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. She kept me in church, and yeah, she was my biggest influence, and just the way she loved Jesus, and yeah, I joked that I was scared to go to church. We were a very charismatic church, and as a kid, I was scared about that. But my mom's faith was always like real prevalent, and she's, some of you've seen in her story, she's had a hard life. But yeah, her love for Jesus was always there, and that was definitely instilled in me. And so yeah, I would definitely say my mom primary.
I was going to say she's very gentle. She just has a gentle spirit about her, and just very, even when she's explaining something, she's,
She's gentle now.
yeah, but not then. So on the flip side of that, like I know that she was your biggest faith, but influencer. But who was your biggest, or maybe still your biggest mentor outside of family?
Mentor. So I have, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it. In some ways, it's unfortunate, but I've never had that mentor, father figure type. Now, my dad was a great dad, and if you would have asked who's just like an inspiration to me, he would be up there. But as far as mentorship,
Yeah,
not
really.
not necessarily. But he's my hero in a lot of ways. He was a good dad, if that makes sense. But I never, I had a pastor that I was under, Kenny Ballard, but he had some issues too. But he was a man that I loved, and looked up to. But like mentor, I've gathered them from different places. One of the things when I tell people about the hardship, and just our journey as a church, and me as a pastor, even going back to the last church that I pastored in, is I've never really had a true pastor to just really sit under. Now, again, I don't want to discredit Kenny because he really invested in me, but I've just, to really have that, I would have liked, it would have been good to have that really when I really started getting into the ministry as a pastor, you know what I mean? But along the way, I've found guys, I wouldn't say, that we were best of friends, but who really took time to invest in my life. Jim Harrington, Ken Schumann, Aubrey Spears are three gentlemen that come to mind that had a big impact on my life and at different seasons in my life and were big. And then outside of that, I've got friends that I wouldn't say mentors per se, but their wisdom in my life. I mean, Luke Yagelski is one of them.
Yeah.
And Timothy Val, Matt Bullen.
Yeah.
Man, I could just like go on and on with. I'm very blessed. Darren Moore. I could go on and name a few more. You get to the point you don't want to leave anybody out, but
Right.
those are guys that I know that I can call and confide in, and if I need some advice, or direction, and they know I'll do it. I don't hesitate to. When I need, big decisions, pray about it, and then I reach out. Sometimes more than one guy, to get some wisdom from, So, yeah, indirectly, that's the way I would answer that question.
Yeah. I kind of see you as blessed in that area, and that's why I asked that question. Not everybody has that, and not everybody seeks that. And that's something that I see in you, that you do seek out people for the wisdom and guidance, and not just going off of your own belief. Like, sometimes you'll say, oh, I think this, but you know what, let me. And I kind of feel like that's good, because that helps us too, as members of the church, to go, I can trust you because I know you're not going to just give me your opinion. You're going to go and search it out.
Yeah.
So we
Well, thank you for
appreciate that of you.
Thank you.
Of course. So when did you first feel called to the ministry?
So back at Freedom Fellowship, small Baptist church, is the one Sean was in. He wasn't there yet. He came a few years later.
Sorry.
But so it was probably maybe 2004-ish. Started going there in 2003, 2004, 2005, probably 2004-ish. My pastor had asked Robert, who's one of my good friends, and he's my boss also at Bella Media. We've been friends since middle school. He asked Robert to if he would fill in because he was going to be out for our midweek service. And he said, yeah, Robert, you're into evangelism. You got this evangelism thing that you do, that you're into. He was into the Way of the Master. It's a Ray Comfort thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But actually, at the time, I think it was a different evangelism thing. But anyways, he was like, okay, I'll teach that. And he's like, hey, Scott, you want to help me do this? We can tag team it together, and we'll have fun studying together. So we studied all week together and presented it. Robert still got it on film. I don't like watching it. But Robert shared the first half, and then I came up and shared the second half. And we came away from that, and Pastor Kenny said, so what do you guys think? That was fun. And is this something you'd want to do again? Robert's like, no. Mm-mm. And I was like, well, maybe so, yeah. And so he's like, I'll give you another opportunity. And so he gave me one. I think it was probably the third time that I preached. And again, it was something that I wouldn't want to go back and watch or listen to, because I listen to my old stuff and I'm like, but I was passionate. Like, the Holy Spirit was there, and it was the passion, not necessarily that they were good sermons, but it was the passion that said, okay, God's doing something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And after God dealt with me in some other areas, he also gave me a strong hunger for the word that I didn't have when I was a kid. And so I started really digging into that. And so honestly, it just kind of grew out of that. Kenny, first he had me teaching Sunday school, and I would do, occasionally do a midweek service, and then I was leading when we switched over to house groups. I was doing that, and then I came on as volunteer staff, and at that point, I wanted to go to seminary, and so it was over a span of about, I would say maybe a year from when I preached that sermon, maybe even shorter, to was like, no, I want to do ministry, which for me, I was 20, probably 27 years old. And so I had absolutely no plans. I did not grow up wanting to be in the ministry. It was just nowhere on the radar. We just wanted to get back into church because we weren't in church when we were in college and dating and
Right.
stuff. And we just that was the goal, is just to find a church and get involved. And God threw me a curveball, and yeah, it just came out of the blue.
And you told Courtney, and she said no.
Yeah. Yep. And she tells it like that, and it was definitely no in here, but she didn't like no,
Yeah.
but yeah, she struggled with it along the way. She had this idea of like pastors' wives, with poofy hair and playing organs and and doing all that stuff. And so I told her early on, I said, babe, if I'm ever pastoring a church, you're going to do what you want to do. If you just want to be a member of the church, and you don't want to do, the ministry stuff, then that's fine. And what was cool was just watching. What's weird though is Courtney has always been, she's always had the gift of well, I mean, I would say shepherding and
Pastoring, yeah.
mothering,
Yeah.
mothering, which lends itself to shepherding, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so she's always had that gift. I mean, that's one of the reasons I fell in love with her, is just when we were teenagers, she was that person, right? She was beyond her years in high school. And I was like, yeah, she just felt different than everybody else. And so that was one of the reasons I fell in love with her, but it was like weird. She never saw that as a gift. It took her a while to see that as a gift. I still don't know if to this day, if she understands that fully, how much of a gift that is. And so, but what I'm trying to say is like, every step of the way, it's so cool to watch her just kind of fall into the role under her terms and the way, that she wants to do it, and then also, being able to drop the stereotype, and then being able to see other people in ministry that aren't, I always say sometimes I say we're the public school, I'm a public school pastor, and what I mean is just like, I feel like, I don't even know if that makes sense, but sometimes I feel like I'm less Christian than the Christians I pastor, or the churches I pastor and stuff like that. And I guess it's just because I became a pastor, so late in life, or not late in life, but I was 27. I had no plans to be a pastor. I just wasn't. Even though my mom raised me in church, I never considered myself a church kid, if that makes sense. So I always feel maybe black sheep, and people probably think, what, Scott, you don't come across that way or whatever, but I don't know. I've always kind of felt like a little out of place, like what am I doing
Yeah.
as a pastor, So, and I think Courtney's a little bit the same way. But the cool thing is I think especially at the Haven, as we've gone along, leading this church, God's shown me that this is what you were designed for. This is what you're made for. And that's been part of my journey, is embracing who I am, and that God actually prepared this on purpose the way that we
Yeah.
are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I embrace it. I say I feel like the black sheep, but I embrace that. Not like a rebel, but just saying like, this is who I am. God designed me this way to lead the way that I do. Hope all that made sense.
It does. And the Haven is something special. Every time I talk to someone who's looking for a church or anything like that, I mean, I tell them I've been to probably over 80 different churches throughout my lifetime. I started going to church at 5, so there's not a church out there like this one.
Yeah.
You know, it is definitely genuine, and it's because of you and Courtney. You know, the love that y'all bring here and share with each other, the way that you embrace people regardless of what they're going through or where they came from or whatever. And it's so contagious. It carries over into everybody. Somebody can come, and I have seen it. People can come in here with, an attitude, and they really don't want to be here, but they're here, and within weeks, they're up smiling and hugging on people, and doing what it is that we do here. And so,
Thank you.
I'm glad that you've chosen to obey.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you, Bree.
So, speaking of Courtney, can you tell us how you and Courtney became a thing?
Well,
No.
oh, she just loves this story. Um, so she dated my best friend for a short period of time, and Joe Sisk, call him out if he's watching this. Yeah, they dated in high school. We're high school sweethearts, and Courtney and I disagree on when we met. She said we met in the Commons area. I say he introduced us in a classroom. He brought me to her classroom and called her to the door. I think I have the better memory, so I think I'm right. But it's probably like like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They tell different angles to the story, so I'm
Yeah.
sure both of the things happened, and we just remember it differently. But so they dated and whatnot, and I dated one of her friends. And so we were all kind of in the same group. But anyways, me and this other girl, we broke up, and I started hanging out with Courtney that summer, like at the last day of school, before summer, going into my senior year. We were just talking and said, "Hey, we should hang out this summer." So I went over her house and hung out for the day. I have no idea why her mom invited me to go on their vacation trip. They do this river trip as a family. They were doing it every year then. But I have no idea. I think I was over there one day, and she invited me to go. And so it was on that trip, like I just fell head over heels for her. And but I'd been in that breakup with her friend not too long before that, so she didn't she's a good friend, and she didn't want to venture there. But then what happened was, in the meantime, we became good friends, like really tight, like best friends. And so by the time that the other girl was like, oh, she's moved on, she's dating somebody else or whatever, then Courtney she didn't want to mess up our friendship or whatnot, And so we were very close for about a year, a little over a year. And but we also fought like cats and dogs. Because she would go hang out with her other friends, or if she would date somebody, and I would get jealous. And
I was going to ask what happened to old Joe. Was she still with?
oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in the past. That was in the past at this time. And her and I were close, but we fought about that kind of stuff. And I tried dating, and I would date, but then I would be back. I still loved her. And it was one of those things, like I knew that she was the one and we were going to be married one day. But then also at the same time, it's going on so long. It's like, oh man, is this really, is this really going to happen or whatever? So she got to a point where I think she thought, I don't know if this is the case, but she thought she was going to lose me as a friend as well. So she needed to make a decision. And so she did. Yeah, so we had our first kiss on November 8th, 1995, and we dated for 8 years, like immediately. Like we went from there to like, in love with each other. Like for her, it was like real quick because we were already best friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, But we dated for 8 years, and then I proposed to her on November 8th of 2002, and then we got married on November 8th of 2003.
That's awesome. I remember both of you guys in high school, and I remember we had a class together. I want to say it was history. Mr. Bruce
Mr.
Burse.
Burse,
Okay, yeah.
I think he's passed away.
Really? Oh, he was one of my favorite
He
teachers.
married Mrs. Bass.
Really?
Hmm.
I
Do you
didn't
remember her?
know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How cool is that? I didn't know that. But yeah, I he was one of my favorite teachers. But I remember you sat in the back of the class, and I don't remember who else was back there. I want to say Clint Dobianski was in there with us, but I can't remember. But I for some reason, I see him in the classroom. But anyway, I just remember you sitting in the back of the class and so quiet and just stuck, back there with your buddies that were back there and didn't really say very much, but you were always nice and polite and things like that. And I remember whenever we connected on Facebook and you invited me to the church and told me you were the pastor, I was like, okay. He never said anything like, how is he the pastor, And in my mind,
Right.
I'm thinking of pastors, that because I grew up Southern Baptist and, they are loud. And I was like, I just cannot see
Picture
you
it.
being, yes. And so,
Welcome to our world. That's the way we were.
yeah. So I kind of, and I had been to, the Dole's church and I was scared and I thought, is it like that? Or, okay, I got to go and check this out. So that's really the first reason why I came the first time. But then I met everybody and of course your mom was here and people and I just,
Well, I appreciate you sticking around
Yeah.
too. It was a bumps and bruises. You saw, a lot of the toddler years of the Haven.
yeah, you have done such a great job in just taking, the steps to better yourself. Self-awareness, self-development. I think you've done such a great job, and being under you now, and Luke as well. I mean, Luke's great too. He's grown over the last few years, and I've just, I mean, before I would be like, oh, who's preaching this week? Okay, I wonder, what they're going to talk about. But now it's like I can't wait to, hear what lesson y'all are bringing because I know I'm gonna,
And she wasn't here on Sunday, guys.
I was not here on Sunday. I was not here. However, I
kidding.
was online
Yes.
for a little bit, and then I have to go
I'm
back
so
and,
kidding.
and see the bottom of it. But anyway, yes, you have grown. Both of you guys have, and I know I can probably speak for everybody that has gone through there and seen y'all from, especially you from the start. We're just honored to be under you. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so what excites you most about the future of our church?
What excites me the most about the future of our church? Growth, doing life together, seeing people get it. I hate to say, like, I'm very excited about the future of our church, but for me, it's a difficult question because I no longer, I guess, treat, like, for me, church isn't like, I don't have a 5-year plan for our church. Now, there are times, again, in the church that it's good to have that 5-year plan, but the way I see it, we're a lighthouse, and it's good to set goals. Goals are good, but we are a lighthouse. We are a family, and I just want to see us be a stronger family of God. I want to see us on things that are hard to measure. To me, success is when when our people are imaging God the other 6 days of the week, right? And they see themselves as living life with a purpose, on purpose, for God. And that's hard to measure, because you can measure, we do those Halloween outreaches and the Easter outreaches, and we, do different events that we have here, worship nights or whatnot. And those things are cool. And but really the things, to me, the outreach that I want to see is so organic. It's you've got a lost friend who's hurting, and you go to, invite her to a coffee shop, or whatever, and you're talking and you're able to listen to her and then share Jesus with her, or how she sees you, in your life and in your ups and downs and all that kind of stuff, and seeing everybody do that with the outside world. Like the early church, right? They lived life so well together. They loved each other so well that it was attractive to the outside world. And though they were persecuted, the Bible also says that they were respected too. There was this amount of respect, because people saw, whether they liked it or not, they saw something special when they saw the church and the way that they functioned, and they saw that they were different. You know what I mean? In a good way. And so that's why it's difficult for me. Maybe I overthink it, because I'm an overthinker anyways. But it's hard for me to answer that question. I just want to see us love each other more, and love outsiders more, and live for Jesus more. And those are the things that excite me. Like, I'm not a big, now I'm rambling, but I'm not a big, I have some extroverted qualities, but I have a lot of introverted qualities too. And I love being around. I love all of our people. I love our family. This is my favorite place to be. Yet at the same time, after service, I can feel like uncomfortable, like not knowing what to do with myself. Sometimes it's just the way I am. I'm like that at parties or get-togethers or whatever. It's like I like being there, but at the same time, you know what I mean. I just don't really know what to do with myself. And I say all that to say, one of my favorite things, if I could just go in a corner, I'd be totally content by myself and watching everybody else interact. And when I see people come in here and they connect with others, new people come in, they go out to lunch with somebody or whatever, or we get them on Signal or whatnot, and they're just, I mean, Rochelle coming back to church, and she loves this family, and she's been through a lot,
Yes.
and just seeing her coming back and just being overjoyed with getting to spend time with us. I love that.
Yeah.
I eat that stuff up, because
Yeah.
that's the heart of Christ, and that's the light of Christ. You know what I mean? And so that's what excites me, and it's hard for me to explain that because it's so organic.
Yeah.
More of that.
Yeah.
If I have to make something measurable, to what I'm, excited about, more of that. Yeah.
I know that, we never want to see anybody leave. There's been times I've due to move or whatever. But for me, when I see somebody return, I can't explain that feeling. And it's, I get emotional. I get, excited, because I'm like, that is what the Haven is. And people return because they know that this is a safe place. They know that they're going to be loved and accepted, and and they've got a room full of people that are going to be there. And so I agree. When I saw Rochelle back, that's exactly how I felt.
Yeah. I was super happy the day that she reached out.
Yeah. I'm very glad she's here. And I will never forget the day that, Eddie looked at me and said, "Babe, I know the Haven is where we need to be." And I just started crying. I was like, yes, finally, 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 finally. We were trying to struggle living in Huntsville. Prices were going up, and, trying to figure out how to afford to come back and forth this way so many times, and that kind of thing. But I knew my heart was always, here. And it's just amazing to see people that do return and stay for whatever their season is.
Yep.
And speaking of that, looking at your congregation over the years, and the people that have come and stayed and those that have gone or whatever, do you see that God has handpicked those people for a reason or season or
That have come and gone,
and gone or even stayed?
even stayed. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's another thing as far as my growth, and transition as a pastor and as a person, because the pastor side is shepherding people, and the downside of that is when you take on, my growing my emotional maturity has been important in being able to pastor, and being able to know what's mine to carry and what's not. You know what I mean? But then also just as a person, and having my own set of insecurities. I'm a people pleaser at heart. So oh man, like one of the things that, I mean, I still don't know if I'm used to it, is when people leave. It's still it's still I still hear that shame voice, like, what's wrong with you? And I've told you, like I told you earlier, this isn't. I don't ever want to look at this as my church. You know what I mean? But obviously, I take ownership of it. We're the body of Christ. We're the church. It's all of our church. I don't like it being called Scott's church or whatever, and I think it's taken on that where it's not. But yeah, but I still hear that voice. What's So it's hard, because one, I do love, and I don't know how much I'm able to show it because I'm that introvert extrovert. I'm not. Luke is very. Luke is he's got a natural gift for the way he interacts with people that I don't have. I've got other strengths and he's got his strengths, but I don't have that. And but I've put a lot of emotional investment, whether they see it or not, in everybody here, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so when they leave, I've got this heart thing or this emotion thing telling me one thing, but I've got up here and I've got the Lord telling me another. And so, I mean, it's always been my rule. I think if somebody knows differently, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always blessed people when they've left. I may be hurting a little bit inside, but also at the same time, I've been very happy for people. But I'm just trying to be honest.
Right,
There's still a part that hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, Brad and Renee had moved to better things for them.
Right.
So there's blessings. There's a lot of people that have left for good reasons. I celebrate and I'm happy for them. I'm excited, but I'm sad.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah.
And so, anyways, forget the original question.
Me too. No, I just wanted to see, do you see God? To me,
Yes,
I
so
see God
The
handpicking.
seasons, yeah, I
Yeah.
can go on a scenic route with things sometimes, but yes, I think even the people what I was getting at is, despite maybe how it may feel or insecurities, I've realized when people have left, it's been for a season. It was their time to go, to move on. Does that make sense? And when people sometimes God brings people here for healing or for a part of their life. And it's my wife's helped me to see that.
Yeah.
Because she's mentioned the season thing a lot, and that's helped me, give me perspective, on that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, people that have left and come back, you're one of them, left and come back more than once.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, but God, God's had people here for a season. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean by the lighthouse, Bree. I mean, it's multifaceted. It's like, you stop, like, we don't have the membership stuff. And
Right.
there's stuff that, like, I mean, I saw back in the day, you would have official membership. And this isn't anything, there's very many positives about having official membership. So I'm not dogging membership. There's reasons we could go through that, but it's neither here nor there for this. But like, I would see, people would sign a card and, make a commitment, and then they're gone a month later. It's like, I didn't see the sign in a card or anything doing
Right.
anything different. If people are going to stay, they're going to stay. If they're going to go, they're going to go. But then also just being able to, like, this is our family. I become more like the Doyles the older I get and the longer I pastor this church. And that's, I used to look at that church like the little church, and they're just totally content with this little
Yeah.
small church, and they're 35 people,
Yeah.
in there, and just, they live in a little trailer right next to it, and they would just go back and forth. And the older I get, I become more like I just see church. I see church differently. I used to be, because I think I was drinking the Kool-Aid, or had been, been taught that, that that's broken church. That's
Right.
not the way you do church. And now I see it. I see it completely different. And so this is a lighthouse. And when you come in, this is something that they would probably say, once you've come a few times, your family, you come more than once, 2 or 3 times, your family, if you consider this your home. And, just realizing you can't stop the back door. I mean, there's things you can do. And sorry, I'm going to ramble just a second. There are things that we have a responsibility for. When people leave, I don't want it to be because of us.
Right.
Unless it's their issue. Some people have their own issues, but even when guests come, I still think, we want people to know we're a small church. We don't want to hide who we are, but also, and so we don't want to hide that, but also at the same time, first impressions matter.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I refuse to put on a show because I want them to know who we are.
Right.
Right. But I don't want it to be because of rudeness, because they were ignored, or something, something tacky happens, or, you know what I'm saying? Just, I don't want it to be for those reasons. But
And you can't stop. You can't stop what's already been planned. Like I said, some are here for a season, some are here a
Right.
lifetime.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is you can't stop the back door, and people could leave for a season, but I just wanted to asterisk that with I do. That doesn't mean I don't want to. I Courtney, you and I use this term called bing bong. I don't want to bing bong church. You know what I mean? Just because we're a laid back church,
Right.
and we're family, we're not bing bong. We're not going about this apathetically.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yep.
So.
I have 2 more things I want to talk about
Okay.
before we
Sure.
end. And the next one is people, and the time that he lived with y'all, and him going through having cancer, and having me and Bailey move in with you and Courtney, and just, that little time span, and how you got through that and dealt with it. And
Oh my goodness. I know our church. Our church struggled a lot early on, because I did some things, that I would do differently in the way I started it, and the learning curve, and things like that. I had a lot to learn, but also, because there was a lot going on with my dad, during that time, and really after he passed away, just seeing, how much we were invested in that, and I'd do it all over again, but it was the hardest, along with my wife's cancer, that she went through. That was the hardest time in my life, because he suffered a lot. He went through a lot, and especially when he moved in with us, and then when he transitioned and had to go to the nursing home, that broke our heart. But then he got dementia and all that kind of stuff. It was that was a hard time. Like I told you before, I mean, my dad, love my dad. He was my hero. I can't wait to see him again one day. Yep.
yeah, I do miss him. I miss different things he would say, or do, and especially around the church, he was always willing to help and do things. And then I mentioned me and Bailey moving in for that month that we stayed with you and Courtney, and the kiddos, and I mean, he made us feel like we were, part of the family. There was no difference, But I bring that up because I knew that was a hard time for y'all. And yeah, Courtney had just gone through her cancer spell and things. And even during that time, so much on, both you and Courtney's plate, there was no hesitation in the moment that I called y'all for help. And asked y'all to let us, come and stay with y'all. I don't even remember how that took. I don't even know if I really asked y'all. I really think y'all just said, hey, we have a room. You and Bailey come and stay,
Yeah.
with us. And y'all did. Y'all made room for us. There was no, like I said, no hesitation, no nothing. You didn't miss a beat. And that is who Scott and Courtney is, and y'all will always have a special, place in our heart, and you will always be my family. But that's what everybody here gets to reap, is the benefits of the way y'all pour in to this church, and they feel the love, and the growth will come to whatever it's supposed to be. And I'm glad that you don't worry about big numbers, or some churches do. It's like, okay, what's the biggest number we can get to?
Yeah.
But then you lose out on the community.
Yeah.
And that's,
I think we got an amazing church, and I tell
Yeah.
people that now. We've struggled in the past, but I think, people ask, how's your church doing? And if they say, how many you running? I'll say, that's two different questions. Let's answer each one of those separately, because I think we've got an amazing church.
yeah.
So yeah, we got 60 people, but it's amazing. Yeah, it's a great church. So,
Yeah,
but
I
thank you for
appreciate
that.
that.
That was very sweet. And
Yeah.
we would, if we had an empty room, we'd take people in today, but no empty rooms. We had
Right.
that guest room, that
Yeah.
was open. And yeah.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to ask is, give us your best Scott 2 and 2.
Oh my goodness. My best Scott 2 and 2. Well, I've got a lot of opinions, Bree.
So this comes from a conversation I had with Zane one day.
Okay.
He said, you can always count. My dad's going to say, Scott, this is Scott 2 and 2.
Yeah.
And so we laugh about it, and we're like, okay, what's he going to say
Usually
today?
you gotta trigger it, It's it comes in the context of conversation. Somebody brings up something. I work really well in like this. Like I do well, really well like this, and it's stuff like that. You might be talking about something. I'll be like, oh, Scott 2 and 2. Okay, all right. So this isn't Bible per se, or this isn't something, and but I mean, I've got, especially when it comes to theology and the Christian worldview and the Bible. I mean, I've got a lot of Scott 2 and 2. That's not original though. I've got to give credit, and he didn't. He said it didn't originate with him either. But I've backed up when I've had lunch with Guy Glass, and I've told him,
Okay.
I was like, hey, everybody thinks like Scott 2 and 2's my thing, that came from me, but I just wanted you to know I'm giving you the credit. And he's like, I got it from so and so, so it's been passed down. But Guy always said Guy 2 and 2, and
Okay.
so I've brought that here. But it's just to let people know that, hey, I'm an old Earth creationist, and so I would say Scott 2 and 2. I'm an old Earth, guy, or I give you maybe my view on Revelation or whatever, a particular end time view, and I may say, that's Scott 2 and 2 or whatever. So there's a lot of those because I love to talk. I'm a theological nerd. That's why I tell people, especially when it comes to theology, I love to pastor, I love to counsel, all those things, but people, I don't want to bother you with my questions. Like, you don't understand. Like, that's fun for me. I enjoy having those conversations. So anybody ever wants to talk about those things, I've got a lot of Scott 2 and 2s, to talk about.
Well, now you know if you hear us chuckle, that's why we're chuckling.
All right.
Because we're like, yep, there's another 2 and 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to, so I like to, it's probably too, even when I don't say it, you'll pick up, I like to preface a lot because I want people to understand what bothered me growing up, or even just hearing other teachers or whatever. They would teach a certain perspective. Going back to like end times, for instance, you teach this whole Left Behind, perspective of things, and they would teach it as it's fact, And as I learned, it's not, one, it's not fact, and two, it's not even historically the church's position until the 1800s, and so, but you're taught things, right? And then you come in and people have assumptions. They think that that's just what, that's what the Bible teaches. That's what Revelation teaches, or whatever. And so I have a passion, one, for helping people, for lack of a better term, helping people deconstruct some of that stuff. Or I just want to kind of like pull the Band-Aid off so that people can realize that, I don't know if that's the right terminology to use, but like just pull the curtain back to let people, one, get a glimpse. I say the Band-Aid so that people can see, maybe there's some things that they've been taught that aren't right, or that aren't necessarily, 100% truth. You know what I mean? And get them to question that. And then my philosophy in a lot of areas is, I have my strong opinions, is to help people to read the Bible for themselves. And with my help, I realize as a pastor, part of my thing is equipping and helping people, but I want to help them like really know why they believe what they believe. I don't
Right.
want you guys to just believe something because because Scott said it, or I taught. I don't want you to just adopt, my perspectives.
Go and research
I
it
think
for
some people
ourselves.
have adopted my perspectives because they researched it and they came. That's what I like to believe. They came to that perspective on their own. But that's 2 and 2. That's just 2 and 2. I'm that's just what I believe, is that people come to those conclusions on their own. But so that's why I do it. That's why I preface a lot, is because I really do. I want to be dogmatic where it's necessary, and where it's not necessary, I want to make sure people know, I don't have to be dogmatic on this, and it's good to we can wrestle with these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, thank you for letting me
Thank
have
you
the
for interviewing
opportunity
me.
to interview you.
Yeah.
I feel honored, and I love you, and I'm excited to see what God's going to do.
Yeah. Love you
Yep.
too. Thank you, Bree.
Yep.